This is leveraging social media to develop your personal and professional brand. Social media is all the rage, but one of the things that I've seen is that there are very few people out there who are leveraging it properly to promote themselves as professionals or to promote their business or any type of concept or event or agenda that they basically have. So, let me give you a little bit of info on me. My name is James Richardson. I'm the academic director for the Communication and Media program at the CUNY School of Professional Studies. I have a background in a number of web-related technologies, and I spent a number of years working with online communities, which were kind of like the precursor in many ways to some of the social media sites that we see today. The agenda for today is going to be as follows. We're going to talk a little bit about what social media actually is and what it isn't. And then we're going to talk about how you can develop a strategy to promote yourself as a professional, to promote your own individual brand. We're going to be looking at defining what your goals are, what you're hoping to achieve by being on social media. And that's going to be different for every individual. And that's something that we do need to focus in on. We're going to look at the various platforms and selecting the right one to help you achieve your social media goals. One of the most important areas is for you to be able to also find your voice. Once you've identified the platforms, what you really want to do is figure out what's the best way to engage your audience. Finding the voice, finding the correct tone to promote your ideas and agenda. We're going to look at how to develop the content, what you should be mindful of, and whether it's text-based, whether it's video, audio, or any other platform. Developing the content is going to be critical, and there's a number of things that you need to consider in that area as well. We're going to look at setting a publishing schedule. Once you've engaged your audience, one of the things you want to make sure that you do is that you keep them engaged. Stop and think if the TV show that you're most in love with, like one of my personal favorites is The Walking Dead. What if that TV show kind of like aired or published at different times? Viewership would go down. So we want to make sure that you set a publishing schedule for your social media so that you actively keep your audience engaged and with you throughout. Then we're going to look at how to monitor and continue to engage your audience. And then we're going to look at measuring the overall success. Let's talk a little bit about what is social media. One of the definitions that I've come across that I like the best is that social media is a collection of online spaces, technology, and practices that enable people and organizations to share opinions, insights, and experiences and perspectives with each other. In nearly every case, these social media sites that we've seen, user participation is at the core. Each platform is radically different and caters to different demographics. As you can see on the right-hand side of this particular slide, we have a number of the major social media sites and showing the active users for each one of these sites for 2014. When we look at the audience that's basically attracted to these individual sites, they're huge. And as I said before, each one of them caters to different demographics, and all of them might not fit into your own social media plan, but being able to understand how each one works will help you define a strategy that fits your personal goals. So let's get into it. Developing a social media strategy. One of the first things you have to ask yourself and define is, what are the goals? What are you hoping to get by being on social media? From my perspective, I'm a college professor. So one of the things that college professors have to constantly do is to publish, to promote their research, to show an impact on the scholarly activities that we're doing. And for me, that's what social media, how I've used social media over the last few years, is to promote my academic views. What may happen for you might be radically different as well. You may want to promote a specific cause. You might want to promote yourself as a thought leader within your own individual discipline. You may have a business or manage businesses, and you want to promote products and services that particular business may have. So you have to define exactly what are the goals for you being on social media. Then you have to make sure that the goals are very specific, measurable, and realistic. So for example, if I wanted to grow my audience in the area of academic engagement, I want to make sure that I have a realistic goal in terms of how many people, what is the overall reach that I can actually bring in. It's also important, once you have those goals and make sure that they're realistic, is to understand who your audience is and to tailor the message specifically for them. So you have to know exactly what their needs and what type of content they're going to be looking for, because you want to make sure that the content that you're producing, the way that you engage them, adds value to their overall viewer experience. Then, last but not least, you have to determine, based on your goals, what media platforms are best for engaging your audience. Let's start off with the one that everyone knows, the 800-pound gorilla on the market, Facebook. Facebook is best, in my opinion, for fostering relationships, to connect with a little bit more of a informal audience, usually family, friends, some colleagues, some professionals that you may want to work with. So the tone that you may choose on Facebook is going to be a little bit different than some of the other platforms that we're going to be looking at. The content should be, in my opinion, very conversational and humanizing. It's a way for you to promote yourself not only as just a thought leader, but also as a human being, a person with family, friends, connections to the world, the type of person that your viewers and your audience would want to hang out with, or work with. So when developing your Facebook profile or your Facebook strategy, it's important to keep in mind that the topics that you post and that you engage with should be relevant and should relate to the audience, the followers, or your network. Things that they want to see, things that affect their everyday life, things that address any problems or needs that they may have. And as I said before, you want to keep it conversational and humanizing. As you can see on the right hand side, this is a picture of my own Facebook profile status, and that's a picture with me and my children at Comic-Con. It's a pretty relaxed overall picture that plays a little bit of shows me in a little bit of a more personal light. One of the things that I think that's important for you to also be aware of when working on Facebook or having a social media strategy on Facebook is to limit the people who can post directly to your timeline. As we start to grow our Facebook friends, one of the things that there's always that one friend of yours who may be a little bit, how should I say it diplomatically, not politically correct. So before I allow anyone to post anything that will show up on my timeline under my name, one of the things I want to make sure is that I kind of have the ability to preview and authorize it before it goes ahead. So anyone who tries to post to my personal timeline, the comment, quote, posting has to be approved by me first. And those are the type of privacy settings, not only just for Facebook, that you should keep in mind for any of the social media sites that you're working on. One of the other ones that I'm fairly active in is YouTube. And YouTube is best for promoting short form video content to promote ideas, products, and services. The video content should be engaging. It should be extremely visual. So you want to make sure that the images are very clear, crisp. And you want to also keep the content, as I said before, very short form. Usually somewhere in the area of about 3 to maybe 5 minutes overall. What we've started to see based on from a number of metrics companies is that the viewership or the attention span for the traditional short form video is usually about a little bit around 3 minutes in length. Some of the more popular videos that you see on YouTube usually are around that 3-minute range. And to boost users and to boost engagement, that's probably the area that you want to kind of try to stay in. Google Plus is one of the newer social media sites, but you can see it already has a huge impact with a little over 500 million users. To be quite honest with you, it's not really that effective. The reason that I left this slide in here is because there are 500 million people who are active users. But usually what's happening is that you get a lot of content coming directly from other Facebook channels. So Google Plus, the posting objective for you there should be to post content, cross listed content from other sites which can be helpful in boosting your search engine optimization and promoting your content that you have on other social media channels or blogs. Twitter is another one that everyone talks about quite a bit as well. It's about 200, almost 300 million active Twitter users. Twitter is the platform that I would tell you to be most cautious of in terms of engaging. It's usually the one that people get in the most trouble with, because once you tweet, once you send out that initial tweet, it's out there. So in terms of developing content and posts for Twitter, you need to be very, very specific and careful. It's best used for posting relevant news and information which benefits your own personal brand in a way that promotes and provokes positive engagement from your followers. As I said before, it's probably best to really think through Twitter posts before you actually send them out, or with any social media site, but especially with Twitter. Instagram is up and coming. It's about 200 million monthly active users, and you can see Instagram is not one of the platforms that I truly engage with as heavily as some of the others, and largely is because Instagram is primarily app based. So you are required to capture the footage directly through your mobile phone or tablet device. I'm a little bit more of a traditional photographer, so it becomes a little bit more difficult for me to kind of transfer photos from one platform that don't come directly from my phone over to Instagram. So this doesn't really work for me and my personal communication strategy, but Instagram is a vastly and fast growing platform, and one which can be very quickly tied into Facebook in terms of posting digital content. So we're going to talk a little bit later about cross-listing content across platforms. Instagram is one where you can upload your photos, keep a consistent look and feel, and then push those photos out to some of the other social media sites that you may be active and engaged on. The photos, in my opinion, should provide a certain authenticity to your personal brand, show you in a very kind of, everything from a light to a professional venue. So Instagram is primarily used for promoting compelling visual imagery. This is the one that I tell professionals to look at most closely, particularly those in the job search area, for those who are looking to network from a professional standpoint. LinkedIn is probably one of the more popular and more important platforms. It's best used for posting and linking to relevant content which pertains to your industry and field. I don't do a whole lot of posting on LinkedIn unless I've written an article or developed a post that is very well thought out and speaks specifically to the LinkedIn network that I've built up. So since I'm an academic and work within the fields of technology and academia, most of the posts that I use on LinkedIn generally fall within that category, talking about everything from new media promotions to new ways that media is being pushed out and developed. So the thoughts should be extremely thoughtful and professional in nature, and should present you as a leader within your field or industry, whether it's academia or whatever field that you're moving into. Pinterest is also an up-and-coming platform. I'm actually pretty active in this area. I like it because it allows me to pin content that I think is very relevant. So it kind of combines a lot of different elements of some of the conversational stuff that you may see on Facebook, some of the professional stuff that you'll see on LinkedIn. Pinterest is fairly up and coming. A lot of small businesses use it to promote their individual products and services. So Pinterest is one that I can think that you should look at in terms of building your own professional brand. I'm looking at a couple of the questions that have come in. And Facebook, one of the questions is can you control who can comment on a post? Can you delete a comment that is irrelevant or inappropriate? Absolutely. And this is one of the things that you need to do in terms of looking at content on any of the social media sites where people can respond. You need to address those comments. And certain, I've had, usually the areas that I have the most problems with are Facebook posts, where I'll have friends who may post something that's inappropriate for an online setting. And usually what I'll do is, I'll delete the comment and then send them a little message, asking them to be a little bit more mindful in the future. And that's from a personal standpoint. From a business standpoint, you may get, if you're managing a social media channel for a particular business, you may get customers or clients who might have harsh things to say about your service. In those particular instances, I don't agree with deleting the comment. What I do agree with is addressing it. Even if you are not able to give them a perfect resolution, to address their concerns, because you want to make sure that, at least from a business standpoint, that you're hearing the comments that your users are giving you, and that you're responding, that you're being proactive and trying to address any issues that they may have. Some of the other questions that we have: is LinkedIn a good way for a hairstylist to develop clientele? Some businesses work better than others on LinkedIn. I'm not sure if I would, not being as you can see from some of my photos, I don't have hair, so I don't really know whether or not that's the perfect venue for clientele. But I'll think a little bit more on that question. Question from Ivan Singer. You mentioned that SEO. How critical is building an SEO presence, and how is it best leveraged? What is the best method for employing conjunction with social media like Facebook? That's a very good question, Ivan. Search engine optimization in terms of driving traffic to your individual channels. I'll explain a little bit of how I do it. This is not how everyone else would. One of the ways of making sure that your content, there's certain platforms that are better for generating content than others. For example, Pinterest, for example, is a great way of driving traffic from one site to another. By posting or pinning different content, you're able to, as users who are interested in a particular category, board, pin, whatever the case may be, that you're able to link them to the areas where you would want to drive the traffic. I generally drive a lot of traffic to my own personal blog site and website. And there's a number of analytical tools such as Google Analytics, as well as my own web hosting files that I use to basically see where the traffic is coming in, what social media channels are driving traffic to my individual site. And that helps me to start to tailor the content on my social media platforms in the appropriate way, so that if I see a lot of my content is coming from one channel, I might want to spend more time in developing content for that particular channel. YouTube drives a lot of traffic to my own site for me. I'm going to come back to some of the questions, but let me move on a bit. Should you have, I didn't cover every individual social media site, but one of the things that people don't think about, oddly enough, when we talk about social media, is developing your own site. Whether it's a blog, whether it's a WordPress site that you may develop, or a standalone HTML site, you should have a physical presence for your business, for your personal brand, and use it to promote yourself. Blogs are an excellent way to create more visibility for your own personal brand. It helps to build trust with a relationship with your audience. As your individual social media channels start to expand, it's important to have a way to kind of drive all of the traffic together. It can allow you then to create a community which you can engage in, and it's a great focal point for bringing together all of your social media channels for increased search engine optimization. If you're not technically conversant, there are a number of easily updatable sites such as Tumblr, Blogger, WordPress, which can be created very quickly, so that if you're not a web designer or developer, you can still put together a fairly engaging site. Tumblr, for example, is one of the fastest growing social media channels, and it's a micro-blogging site that's very popular with certain demographics. There are a number of other, social media channels that are also. We looked at a few of them. There are a number. I'm not going to go through each one of these. There are a number of other ones that are up and coming, Elo is one, which is kind of like the anti-Facebook site where, they basically promise not to capture any of your information or sell your information to third party or show advertisements, which is a problem that a lot of people have with Facebook, is that a lot of the information that you put there is being used by Facebook and sold by them. So, you have these other social media channels that are popping up. You have Elo, you have Snapchat, you have Vine, which caters to a much different demographic, a much younger demographic. Snapchat is very popular with the younger generation, kids, or people of my children's age. My daughter is 16. I have a son who's 13. Both of them are highly active with Snapchat and with Vine because it's much more ephemeral. The content is very ephemeral. It exists for a short amount of time. It's very quick. It's for almost that low information, low attention span, which I think to a certain extent skews to a much younger audience. There are some other social media platforms that I listed here. I'm not going to go through all of these. I will make these presentation slides available to you guys so that, if you want to look at these in a little bit later time, that'd be great. But this is what's happening within the field of social media. So when people are saying that they're social media experts, I find that a little hard to believe because the field is constantly changing. Platforms that are hot today may not be hot in the future. Stop and think about what happened with MySpace, that was over, or Friendster, for those of you who are a little bit older. Social media channels are always going to come and go, so developing or a strategy for each one of these is going to be something that we're going to constantly have to evolve and look at. You take a look at a couple of other questions that we have here. One from Scott Ramsey. I have a very specific demographic I'd like to appeal to. What's your best advice on how to determine which platform is best for which audience? There are a number of indicators or places, metric sites that you can go to that will give you demographic information on individual channels, different platforms that skew. As I said earlier in the slide previously, there are certain channels like Snapchat and Vine which appeal to a much younger demographic. There are other channels which deal with a much more professional, or channels such as some of the more obscure ones. One that I use from an academic standpoint is academia.edu, which deals primarily with the academic world. Which platform that you use and which ones can be pretty evident by just doing a little research on what's the audience on those sites. And there are a number of social media sites or analytical sites that I can point you to that will give you demographics on those. Let's look at the next one. Is Pinterest a step down from LinkedIn? It appears to be a less formal version, or perhaps a manner of connecting on different platforms. Is that right? I wouldn't say it's a step down from LinkedIn. Pinterest just has a different market. LinkedIn is primarily for business people, for network connections, people looking for work, people to engage others within their own working environment. Pinterest, to a large extent, can be used for business, as many of these other platforms. It's just a little bit more informal, conversational pen. I post things. I flip back quickly to Pinterest. This is some of my Pinterest boards right here. You'll notice that I have one on social media and new media, board on the future of education. I have one on Batman, who I'm a comic book nerd. I'm heavily into TV shows and comic books and so forth. So I post some artwork and fan film stuff from those particular venues. Pinterest is a way to kind of tag interesting things that you may find on the web and that you might want to promote or show yourself in a little bit different light. If you look at my overall Pinterest board, I think you'll get a fairly decent idea of what my interests are. In other words, my pinned interests. So there are a number of social media platforms, and that doesn't even include the social media platforms that we see in some of the emerging markets such as China and India. And I have a slide up here which shows some of those, and because of just the population of those particular countries, those social media sites might be things that in the future we may have to pay much more attention to. Developing your voice on social media is straightforward. You need to keep it simple, keep it conversational, be authentic in what you're saying. Try to include imagery. Visual images are always much more engaging, whether they be movies or photos. They help to activate more of your engagement from your users or from your followers. The last one, add incentives, is there's a number of different sites that do things from everything from giveaways to giving away free content for engagement. And those are things that you might want to consider if you're promoting a product or a service, as opposed to promoting just yourself as a professional. The number one thing I will say is when developing content, the thing that you should ask yourself, more importantly than anything else, regardless of what channel you are on, is this something that, I would want on the cover of a magazine? Is this something I would want my mom or my children to see? If it was a commercial aired across the world, would you be proud of it? Stop and think about the number of celebrities, the number of personalities who have sent something out on social media only to instantly regret it. And I think that before these things go out, you need to really pay very close attention in terms of what is the value, what is the purpose of sending this content out. And if something was posted in a similar vein about you, would you be happy about that? So that usually helps me to maintain whether or not, the type of content that I basically promote. You need to also be organized. And that means everything from creating a publishing schedule to stay consistent to utilizing some individual tools that will help you manage your individual social media channels. A couple of tools that we have here, one is Buffer, which is a new and upcoming one that allows you to kind of control and schedule your content that's being sent out. So you can actually start to plan out over time and spend a little bit more time developing the content so that it's not just sent out in the heat of a moment. And that's something I definitely think that tools like Buffer and Hootsuite, which some of you may have heard of, that allow you to be a little bit more focused in terms of, or a little bit more controlled in how the content actually goes out. You want to make sure that the content is engaging, that you're listening to the audience, that you get analytics or information on who your content is reaching. And some of these tools like Buffer and Hootsuite will do exactly that. We're just about out of time. So I'm just going to take a couple of more questions and pretty much call it a wrap for the day. But these slides I will make available to you. I will send this out. But we have everything from measuring other tools, analytical tools that we can use, as well as kind of like a recap. And just to recap the overall social media cycles, things that you should really pay attention to is in developing your social media strategy, you need to identify your goals, identify your target audience, listen to what their particular needs are, what type of content are they most anxious to get. And by understanding that, you will basically be able to develop and plan to create content that will keep them engaged, keep them interested in your individual channels. You need to then build the community and keep the active engagement growing. This is kind of like a circle of life, a circle of social media life. And after you kind of build the content and engage them, you need to evaluate and see where you went right, what posts were most important, what type of content really hit, what type of content didn't engage your audience, and then basically restart the cycle again, start to redevelop. So this is an overall constantly evolving process. Social media takes time. It's not, especially managing multiple channels, managing a strategy, and promoting yourself, your product, your service. These are things that you have to spend time developing. It's not kind of a one-all thing that you should take lightly. So with that said, we're about up to about 32 minutes now we're running. I'm thinking if this goes over well, we may do a couple more podcasts or webinars on social media, particularly on how to protect your identity online, how to make sure that you protect yourself in terms of a number of things of developing the overall tools for developing content online. So there's a number of different topics that we can kind of go through. With that said, the last slides that I have, we talked about getting organized, we talked about measuring tools, the recap. There's a number of best practices that I want to cover. It's probably best to post on weekends. Analytics that we've seen show that people are actively more engaged on social media channels on the weekends, just because I suspect that they just have more time then. Make sure that you reach out on social media. Make sure that the content and that your engagement with your audience provides assistance. That it's of value to them. You have to prove that them following you, them listening to you, promotes some type of value. Tag appropriate people and places. In other words, connect to others within your field who are thought leaders. It's you want to make sure that you're associating in the same type of crowds, social media crowds that people within your industry are watching. You need to also keep learning. As I said before, social media channels are popping up left and right all over the place, and there's some that are better than others. There's others that are going to be replaced in the future. So it's important for you to monitor and to keep learning, because currently there's no such thing really as a social media expert. Use images and photos. People are usually more engaged with visually compelling content. Use hashtags. It's a great way to increase exposure. Not all sites use hashtags. Twitter is one of the ones that most people are more familiar with, but there are a number of other social media sites that also have those hashtags that allow you to target trending topics so that you can draw and drive traffic to your individual channels as well. And don't be hesitant to respond and to engage with your fans and followers. This is how you build a connection with people, with your audience. Social media has to be exactly that. It has to be social. The only people that I generally follow are people who I think actually, number one, understand what they're talking about, but also who are adding or educating me in different topics that I'm interested in, that are providing a value. With that said, I just want to say thank you for listening. If you're interested in more info on the communication and media program, where we deal with a number of topics like social media, web development and design, and how media itself is transforming our landscape, please visit our website at http://sps.cuny.edu. You can call us at 212-652-CUNY. You can write us at information@sps.cuny.edu. For a little bit of blatant self-promotion, you can always feel free to contact me at james.richardson@cuny.edu, or you can always reach me via my own website, which is actively connected to all of my social media channels, which is jamesrichardson.net. I apologize that I didn't get to all of the questions. I'll try to respond to some of these. I believe we have everyone who registered. We can respond to some of the questions. So anything that I didn't address here today, I'll try to basically send out some questions to you guys, or answers to your questions, in a little bit in the future. Once again, thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you guys on the next webinar that we do.